Welcome to Let Me Know How It Is, a pop culture podcast about TV, movies, comics, and all things geek. We're looking back today at some of animation's best projects that never happened. Thanks for listening. All right, this episode is a follow-up to last week's How Did This Get Made animation edition. Only this time we're talking about projects that were never made. I'm Zach Slater.
I'm Frank Melman.
This is Tommy Smithereens.
And I'm Clifton.
So I want to start out by saying this topic can get big and out of control quickly when you start factoring in rumors and like what I would like to do's and stuff like that. So we were very careful to only talk about things that we know were either pitched or in development at some point. We've assembled this list from creator interviews, press releases, podcasts, that sort of thing. In researching these, sometimes the reason for the project not moving forward is unknown. We'll detail that information, certainly if we have it, but in a few instances, we're going to have to leave you guys in the dark because we're in the dark. So we're going to go with our first category, which is the pitch stage. And we're going to start off with Disney. And we're going to say Disney had a pitch for the Haunted Mansion as an animated TV series from Tyndall, who later went on to Kubo and the Two Strings.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So word is he was working at Disney for at this point and had assembled this as a pitch and actually put together like some test footage that actually went around to people. And like he was in love with this idea, like researched the ride to such a degree, like really wanted to get into like some of the ghost characters that appeared in the ride as well. Like even went in to find like they were all super excited about one that was like pulled from the ride for a couple of years.
Oh wow!
At some point,
be like a secret villain, like a big reveal.
Yeah. So this one just looked really, really awesome, and this one kind of heartbreaks me a little bit because I'm not into horror movies that much. Although our engineer disagrees with me on that. He thinks I'm into it and I don't know it. But I am into it in TV animation because it is like it's a different flavor of things.
Right. To
do kind of horror in a kid-friendly way, I think is super interesting.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's not all that much of it out there.
No, there's really not. So we will, of course, post the proof of concept on letmeknowhowitis.com, which we'll do with other stuff with, animation art and, any pitch art for stuff that we can find.
What year was this pilot? What year are we talking about that this pitch was being talked about?
The interview was posted in 2018, but I don't know how long ago. This was some time ago because this was definitely like he left to work on Kubo.
Okay.
Which that movie was what, 2015, 2016?
Right.
So, yeah, and I don't think he's at Disney anymore either.
Right.
I think he's off working on other things. But, if you look at these articles on Sci-Fi Channel and stuff like that, like he'll go back in a minute to work on this.
to do Haunted Mansion.
Yeah. So.
It was a good ride. I did the Disney World version. Never been to Disneyland, but I did enjoy it. I can definitely feel there's some story there.
Yeah, no, I think that he was approaching it from the idea of the character was at a moment of going through a personal loss, and that was going to kind of be like the universal aspect that everybody has gone through that at some point, and he was interested in making the main character's interaction with the ghost like a necessity for that character. Like they needed the Haunted Mansion for something. It was a means to an end for them. So
it was like their purgatory, like their unfinished business.
I guess so. So no, I just think this one sounds super, super cool. Okay. But so we'll move on because this is a long list. There's a lot of really cool stuff on this list. Okay, so I'm going to throw out one that we admittedly don't know very much about, but to me still sounds very, very cool, and I wish it happened. So this is a show called Joe Grunt,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't find much about this one. What was this about?
I dug and dug and dug like crazy trying to find stuff about this. So the story with this one is after Batman the Animated Series, Spielberg was a fan of that show and went to the guys that worked on Batman and said, I kind of want to do an action adventure show with you guys. Put together a bunch of pitches and I'll pick one and we'll go with it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea is that a bunch of the Batman Animated Series guys, they all kind of split up into different groups and came up with a whole bunch of different ideas. Right?
Right.
Eric Radomski and Ronnie Del Carmen came up with this one, which was supposed to be just like, it's just described as like a futuristic action adventure show.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But supposedly this is the one that Spielberg loved. Like loved this idea and wanted to do it.
Okay.
But the problem was that Jamie Kellner, who was the head of WB Animation at the time, didn't like this idea.
Okay.
And thought that it ran a little like kind of too adult friendly and not kid friendly enough.
Okay.
Right? And so the show that ended up getting greenlit instead of this show was Freakazoid.
Ah, okay.
Right?
Sure.
Okay.
They sound very different.
Yeah. Well, apparently also Freakazoid out of the mouth of Bruce Timm was supposed to be a little bit more straightforward as a teenage superhero, kind of in the vein of Spider-Man and the Creeper.
Okay.
Like mixed together. And then as meetings went on, it became more and more of a comedy.
It became wackier and wackier.
Yeah. But it's just like this episode, this idea fascinates me. I mean, this is the Batman Animated Series guys, like in the height of their power, right? Is like 96.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Doing an original concept, which I mean, now there's like space adventure stuff all over TV, but at the time in 96,
right.
Not a lot of it,
Mm-hmm.
Plus Spielberg like thrown into the mix. Like I'm super like on top of the fact that you get like occasionally, like I saw on Twitter, like Paul Dini was asked about this one time. And he was like whether or not he was involved with it. He's like, I was a fan. Like the development art was beautiful, but I offer the right episodes if it got picked up. And so like, I'm just fascinated with the mystique of this thing. And I can't find like no production art about it.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Right.
When you Google this, what comes up is the G.I. Joe
right.
grunt.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe Grunt. Yeah, I got that too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad we got Freakazoid as a result, but still.
Yeah, we are all Freakazoid fans. That is like the twist of some of the things we're talking about. Is some of the stuff, like as cool as it sounds, it didn't happen, and then stuff we like did happen. So it's a tricky situation.
You'll start to see patterns as this goes on. But yes, I'll ask all of you out there, if you guys find anything about Joe Grunt, please hit us up, because I want to see this stuff. This is the one that I keep hoping will get revisited at some point.
Yes, Joe Grunt is on a milk carton somewhere in the animated universes.
Right? Okay. All right, so let's move on. So this is kind of a big one we'll do next. Maybe some of you have heard about this. No, we're not kidding. Gotham High.
Yep.
How is this going to work exactly?
This was a pitch by Jeffrey Thomas and Celeste Green. I'm not exactly sure when, but the first reports of this one came out, and the pitch art that they had prepared for it came out around 2011. So it was definitely before then, if not right before then, a little bit before then. And it was just going to be like all of the like Batman and all of the Rogues Gallery as teenagers in high school in Gotham.
Okay.
And there is art that they prepared that has like teenage Joker and Harley and Penguin, and I think it's
Bane.
Croc in like a sports jersey.
Yep. Two-Face.
Yep.
Yep.
Poison Ivy like on a debate stage running for class president.
So it's kind of DC superhero girls before DC superhero girls?
Right. Yeah, I was going to bring that up too as something that you notice that happens and I did hear Paul Dini talk about this, where like something's pitched and then they don't get it, and then 10 years later like another pitch comes along that's a similar flavor,
Mhm.
And all of a sudden the studio is ready for it then. So
Okay.
you see kind of resurgences. And yeah, it does sound like a spiritual, what would have been a spiritual predecessor to what became DC Superhero Girls, which is basically that, but set in Metropolis.
Mhm.
But definitely similar to the different DC Superhero Girls series that there have been so far, the two different versions of that have existed.
Right. The pitch art for this is really cool though. It's really it is a goofy idea when you hear it, but it is cool to see all the characters and how they would fit like sort of as a high school archetype.
Right.
Right? Like
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, you got like the jocks, you got the goth.
Yep, the
Joker's
misfit.
got the baggy pants.
Yep. The guy running for class president, right? Like
That's Two-Face running for class president against Poison Ivy in one of the pitch arts.
no, I was gonna say it reminded me of X-Men Evolution,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah.
in which
Oh, there's some of that to it
you
too?
get that same concept but with X-Men,
Right.
but it's more, I guess, school based and less punching the bad guy theme.
Right.
I thought there was. Does anyone know, Clifton? Do you know if there was? I thought I saw an ad for one of their YA novels with the same sort of concept.
It is, but it's by different people.
Okay, is that what it is? Okay.
They have more recently done a Gotham High young adult aimed graphic novel, but that one is from author Melissa De La Cruz and illustrator Thomas Patilli.
Gotcha.
So yeah, they really like, again, like a similar idea came up, and at a later point they were ready for it.
Yeah, because I haven't seen all of the Lauren Faust DC Superhero Girls, but what I've seen I like, and I like the idea that everyone's like in high school together trying to coexist and be superheroes at the same time.
Yeah, I've seen at least most of it. It's a fun show. It's a fun idea. Like I was ready for it back when I first heard about the Gotham High pitch, and then eventually get something similar. I was definitely happy to see that idea be explored.
Yeah, it's too bad. I kind of deep down wish that this happened a little bit. Like just for a season at the very least, you know. I just think it would have been fun.
Right.
Maybe we'll get it as an animated movie. Okay, so just to warn everybody too, there's going to be a lot of DC stuff on here. I just think I mean I was looking at like as to why, like, but I just feel like that they've been steadily making stuff for ever since 91. You know, like DC and Warner Brothers has not really taken a lapse in producing stuff, even with all the stuff that we're going to get into that never happened. They still had a ton of stuff that made it out, you know?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, Superman Family was a pitch that was floating around.
I saw this initially like on from Sean from Cheeks Galloway, that he had talked about, that he put up some artwork, I believe either on Twitter or on Facebook, that showed a Superman Family show done with his style of art. And it was, you know, Superman and Lois and John Kent and Crypto, and I believe they wanted the one that they basically rolled that out of New 52.
From the Gene Yang book?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's cool.
Like that, he would there, and then there was also talk of including Steele's niece.
Kong Keenan.
Yes,
was
that's the character.
one you're talking about. Yeah, that character.
As well as Natasha Irons as Steele, or, you know, her version of Steele as well. And I think they even talked about, I thought I remember somewhere in an interview he's talked about including like Tracy 13 and some of that stuff that was around that time. Okay. But it was supposed to be more of a lighter, you know, like not quite. So it's in between like kids and teens, where it was kind of supposed to be more of a modern take on like some of the goofier Silver Age type stuff, which I love. I was really loved to seeing this because I love Silver Age Superman. You know, some of my favorite Superman stuff, all the Kurt Swan stuff.
Right.
Also, it was him and Vinton. I never know how to say the guy's name. Vinton T. Huck?
Yeah, Vinton Huck or Vinton Huck. We're not sure.
We're not sure.
That, but Vinton Huck.
Yeah. But they had pitched it to DC, and then, like I said, I've only seen a couple pieces of art. One's like a very standard family shot of them, like taking a picture of like the, you know, Superman, Lois, and John and Crypto, and the other one is basically like a group shot of all these different characters that they were possibly going to include.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vinton says he came up with it while directing on season 3 of Young Justice and drew some pitch art that was basically an animation-friendly version of Superman Rebirth that was going on in comics at the time.
It also said it was, I know it's supposed to be like, it's supposed to be very Silver Age-ish. It also reminded me of the recent Patrick Gleason and Peter Tomasi Superman book.
Okay.
Like that book had a lot, had a very similar feel. I think I've talked about it before, the idea that it should have just been called Superman Family because it's all of them, doing superhero stuff together or dealing with stuff as a family, basically. So, but yeah, I would have loved to have seen this.
Yeah. This sounds almost like a Brave and the Bold Superman.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just not necessarily a team up. But if it happened, they would have gotten to that, I'm sure.
Yeah. I would. I mean, again, I even if it evolved into like a DC Comics Presents type setup where they had Superman teaming up with different superheroes every week or every month or whatever.
Okay,
I would have been fine with that too. But this, again, I think the premise as it is sounded really, really strong.
And they did have stuff in mind for Damian.
Yeah, so they could have you could have the Super Sons team up.
Yeah, and we were big fans of both Sean Galloway Cheeks. And Vincent Hook. Love his directing and the stuff he's worked on. And he's directed some great episodes of Young Justice and Harley Quinn. So, I mean, this would have been a ton of fun to see.
Yeah.
This one hurts a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The one of the Cheeks drawings has little John Superboy wearing jeans with a patch on him. It's adorable.
Well, I mean, it's also that, like, we talk about Spectacular Spider-Man so much, and he was the primary designer on that show. Cheeks was.
Right.
And it's like, I've always been aching for his, like, return to animation. I always wanted something to look like his style because I really like it. And I think he's a fun designer.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if he's out there, I hope he gets another crack at a show.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Hopefully this one. But, okay, so I have also another really, really fun one that I'm heartbroken this never happened. So, this is back in 2008. It was pitched by Tom Ruegger of, like, Animaniacs and Tiny Toons and those kind of shows. And he had a show called Mixed Nuts with a Z.
Okay.
And he pitched it as it was a Looney Tunes Hanna-Barbera crossover series.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
And for the life of me, I don't understand how this never happened. Like, I don't need to hear anymore.
No,
that's it. This is all I need. It sounds like Marvel team up.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? Like Bugs Bunny teaming up with Yogi Bear?
Yeah.
Right. Sure.
Done.
Yeah. I'd never heard anything about this one before.
Right.
Did you find was there any art done for it?
There was a little bit of art done for it. It's like, like Bugs Bunny with Fred Flintstone in the Flintstone car and stuff. Like it all looked really fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds really cool.
Oh God. I want to know what motherless jerk kept this from all of us.
Right.
Oh no, God.
That sounds like it's the easiest yes in the world, I would think.
I know. Right? Wouldn't you?
It just must have been my only thing is it must have been just the idea of having, I mean, how would you make that work? Like, I mean, that's my thing. And not creatively, I just mean from the idea of behind the scenes of.
Oh, creatively, I was like, who cares?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think creatively would be the problem. I think there's a lot, sit in a writer's room and you get a bunch of ideas, but I'm just saying from the idea of, the two companies mixing it up.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Warner Brothers owns
subsidiaries of Warner Brothers.
Right. Yeah. I'm just saying that's more along what I mean is the idea of, making all that fit.
With Elmer Fudd hunting Yogi Bear.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in. Got any more?
Who wouldn't want to see Yosemite Sam and Quick Draw McGraw?
My God, Frank. How did you know I was thinking Quick Draw McGraw in my head?
I don't know. But that's the one I thought of. Like, that would be amazing. I'd love to see that.
That would be, man, that would be so good. Oh,
yep.
I hope this happens. I hope that this comes out. Come on, Hulu.
Yeah. I mean, Jetsons and Marvin the Martian.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this practically writes itself. So I'm like, again, it must have been somebody's ego that got in the way of this happening.
Somebody doesn't like cartoons, is what it is. That's what I think. It's what I think.
And fun.
Fun. Yeah.
No fun, no cartoons.
I thought you guys would all love this one because I'm like, again, I'm just, it's beyond my comprehension how this didn't get like instant green light.
Sure. Of course.
But okay. All right. So we are going to a Street Fighter show that at least had some art for it.
Yes.
Right? Clifton, you can back me up on this one. So this was by the great Joaquim Dos Santos.
Correct.
AKA sometimes known as Dr. Fight.
I did not know that.
Among the animation
that's
fan group because his choreography of fights in animation is always awesome.
Sure.
Okay. That's true.
I mean, it makes sense. I just didn't know that it was a thing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Come on. What are you kidding me? Those fights with Black Canary and Wildcat in Justice League, right?
Sure.
He did those episodes.
Not disputing it. I'm just saying. I didn't realize it was an actual nickname.
I think I would get along great with him. I do. Just watching his stuff, he in the same head like me, both likes MMA and professional wrestling. I can tell from the choreography. I know it because you have arm bars and like German suplexes.
Yeah.
Like Kurt Angle German suplexes. I love it.
Right.
Anyway. So yeah, but he had done some pitch art for a Street Fighter show called Warriors Dawn, which, you know, if you ever seen his art style, it's great. Like, again, I don't know who doesn't want to do this from him.
Right.
You're gonna get awesome fights out of it.
Yeah, I mean, this one he spoke about himself, so it is direct information on this one. What's not clear is like how far this actually pitched. What he says is he posted in February of 2018 an image of from Street Fighter Warriors Dawn and said, "This is an old piece for a Street Fighter animated pitch I was dreaming about some years back, right around the time Korra was rapping, tentatively called Street Fighter Warriors Dawn. Could/would have been so fun. One day, hopefully, total dream project."
Fingers crossed.
So hopefully, yes, definitely hopefully, because
Right.
I would love to see it.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, what we're going to have to do is have to wait for like another Street Fighter video game, which it's been like 30 years and we're up to what, 5? That number doesn't seem right. We should be up to like 13 or 14 by now.
Right.
Right.
Or somebody's going to have to do a Street Fighter movie again.
Yeah.
You know, before, which, you know, we'll get into this more in the episode. Like, it helps get something off the ground.
Right. Well, I mean, it's possible if the Mortal Kombat reboot, you know, reimagining does well. There's no reason why we couldn't think we'd get something Street Fighter.
Right.
Yeah. If it does well on HBO Max this month.
Yes.
Okay. So back to DC really quick. We got there was a Nightwing show that was very briefly being pitched by Ki-Huan Ryu. I hope I'm saying that name right. He was a character designer on Legend of Korra and Boondocks.
So another connection to Legend of Korra crew.
Yeah. Yeah. And not a whole lot is known about this one, but there is art that you can find online for this. And the designs are really, really cool, I think. It is kind of Legend of Korra style, a little bit more that than Boondocks, if you're going by the two shows that we know him from.
Right.
And I think there's a Raven design for it as well. So she would have been at least a supporting character, guest star capacity. We don't, like I said, we don't know a whole lot. Supposedly the reason this didn't happen was that they decided to go with Young Justice.
Okay.
Right. But still a cool one. I love Nightwing. I know I'm not alone.
Right.
Could be very cool.
So, and then I'm just going to drop these in here too, because I don't think we'll ever have an episode to really talk about them.
Okay.
I'm a huge Golden Age animation fan.
Right.
And specifically like wartime animation stuff. And supposedly Disney had a couple of wartime shorts that never happened, but they talk about it at least in a book that came out in 95. It was called The Disney That Never Was, and it had stories and arts from 5 decades of unproduced animation. I don't have this book, but I tripped over this online. And so apparently they had one called the Square World that was going to be, it was pitched around the idea of demonstrating the conformist society of Nazi Germany.
Okay.
Right? Again, very loose, but I've seen a lot of these wartime Disney stuff and they can be like really abstract and kind of broad, but at the same time, like there's such a, for Disney, there's such an edge to these cartoons, especially like if you're watching like the Chicken Little one, which I don't even know if you could find that online, but it's, you know, sounds happy and nice, like a kid's thing that you would expect from Disney. And it's dark. and it's one of the reasons I love these. But
yeah, this one I'm not familiar with at all.
Oh, really? I'll try and find it and put it. I don't know if like, you know, I doubt that this stuff is on Disney Plus. I don't know that they put out a DVD set of all the wartime stuff a couple of years ago, but I think that's been the only time in recent memory that this stuff has been circulated by them.
Okay.
So, but they had also another one that they were calling Democracy, which was going to be comparing democracy to Nazi Germany through a family named the Joneses. So I guess that we were going to see them on either side. Which, you know, I just think it sounds cool.
Okay.
And apparently they were also planning the Gremlins, the Roald Dahl book.
Right.
They wanted to make it into a film in 1943.
Right. That did make it into shorts, right? Because I've seen those creatures animated somewhere, I thought.
Warner made it into shorts.
Yeah,
it was in some
right.
Bugs Bunny cartoons.
Yeah, where they've got the mallet and they're banging on missiles, on the bombs. Yeah.
They did do a children's book on the Gremlins.
I've seen the
Disney
book.
did.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say maybe like 2009.
Right.
I think it came out. Yeah, but and apparently it was a limited production thing. I think there was only like 3,000 copies of it printed.
Okay.
Which I didn't know, but yeah. So that's kind of the closest thing that we'll get to the movie is at least that book, but it just sounded super cool. And
yeah,
you know, seemed like my only chance to talk about wartime shorts from Disney. So I wanted to throw it in there. So, okay, so we're going to close out this category really quick with Paul Dini, who on his old podcast, Radio Rashi, was talking about some unmade projects and some things that were in development. And apparently he had pitched long before the DC Nation block on Cartoon Network. Mm-hmm. He had pitched something called DC Showcase.
Right.
That sounded virtually exactly like what we ended up getting.
Yeah, like what I mentioned before when Paul Dini was talking about like that happens where, you know, a pitch will get passed on and then sometime later you'll see the studio basically embrace something very similar. This was what he was directly referencing, was that around the time of when DC Nation was on, which was the early 2010s, which was the Saturday morning block that would run on Cartoon Network, and it would have Young Justice and Green Lantern, the animated series, and Beware the Batman later. Mm-hmm. And then would have interstitial stuff in the middle, like shorts of other characters and things. That he had pitched something either identical or very similar about 10 years earlier called DC Showcase, which he had pitched it as to spotlight different characters from all over DC Comics in lots of different styles. And a few that he mentioned was Bruce Timm did art for Angel and Ape.
Oh, wow.
And Lynn Naylor did art for Supergirl. And then some of the other characters they had stuff in mind for was Aquaman, but it was going to be like a young boy Aquaman growing up.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
And then Zatanna and Martian Manhunter.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah,
Martian Manhunter,
Paul Dini and Zatanna.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
You got
Martian Manhunter, though. Hey, Frank, huh?
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, right.
Another Martian Manhunter project that never comes to light. Awesome.
Right.
Yeah.
I love those.
Story of your life, right?
Yep. That's cool.
But yeah, I mean, I'd love to see the stuff they did for those.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a perfect segue to our next category. So this is projects that were actively in development at one point and then didn't happen,
right,
for one reason or another. So we're going to use DC Nation as our through line. And I can hear all the listeners groan right now when I say this if they hadn't already known about it. But Genndy Tartakovsky from Samurai Jack fame.
And Dexter's Laboratory. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Was developing a series of Superman shorts for DC Nation.
Great.
Yeah. Would have loved to have seen that.
Those would have been nice.
Right? Some very, very I'll say broad concept art for this.
Mm-hmm.
I believe done by Scott Wills, who is his like constant frequent collaborator, who's a background painter on, all of his shows, Symbiotic Titan, Samurai Jack, like all of the new stuff. He's on Primal. His current show.
I love his backgrounds. His stuff's gorgeous.
Yeah, his stuff's amazing. So he had done some key art for these that, again, we'll find and we'll put up on letmeknowhowitis.com. But I wish time machines existed.
Just for this?
Just for this.
Right.
Oh my God. I want so bad like that Rick and Morty, like I could watch TV from other dimensions just to watch these.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, do we know, did time just run out on these? Like, were these slated to happen around the time they wrapped up DC Nation and decided to stop that project?
That sounds familiar. I believe that might have been the case, that they were just like, it was just happening on the tail end of the block when it was sort of like in its last days.
I mean, I can't imagine another reason to turn down a Genndy Superman. I just can't understand. I can't picture any other reason being the cause.
Yeah. I can't either. I mean, he hasn't been near this stuff ever since then.
Yeah.
Like, I hope that it's not like the only chance and we've missed the boat and now we'll never see him ever touch these characters. But
No.
I don't know. That one hurts. You want to know which one hurts also? Greg Weisman and Brandon Vietti on Space Ghost.
Yeah. I look for this, and other than that it was in production, right? So
it was in development.
I'm sorry, in development.
Yeah.
So, but was there any art? Was there anything for it?
No, I don't know how far along in development they got. There's at a panel, again, like 10 years ago, I think it was around 2012, a panel, it's Greg Weisman is on a panel with Steven Seagal from Man of Action, Chris Oatley from Disney, and I'm forgetting the artist's name, but the artist who worked on him over the years with Gargoyles, one of the Gargoyles artists, are all on a panel. And Greg Weisman brings up some of the stuff. And so apparently he and Brandon Vietti, decided to team up for some pitches at Warner Brothers Animation. And the timeline's kind of hard to pin down. It sounds like this would have been around 2007-ish that they started teaming up for these things, because he talks about that they pitched a Green Lantern series that then kept getting pushed back because the movie, the Green Lantern film, kept getting pushed back. And so it was kind of to tie in on that. Although it did not star Hal Jordan, he doesn't say who his starred, but my guess is Kyle Rayner as the main character. He just says it was not Hal.
Right.
And the timeline on this and the Space Ghost, because they were doing both, is that they went to Green Lantern first and then worked on that a month. And then the Warner Brothers Animation execs okay, you're not working on Green Lantern anymore. That got pushed back. How about Space Ghost? And so then they're we got super excited about Space Ghost, loved what we were doing on Space Ghost, and worked for a month on Space Ghost until the Warner Brothers Animation exec, Sam Register, came back and he's like, okay, you're not working on Space Ghost anymore. Consumer Products doesn't want it, meaning Mattel didn't want to make toys for Space Ghost is what that meant. And that is literally why that one was killed, because at that point in time, everything was toy driven, everything they were working on, all the action cartoons. And if Mattel, quote unquote, Consumer Products wouldn't put up the money, then it wasn't getting made.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So they worked on that for about a month. And then after that, they developed Young Justice.
Right. So we got Young Justice out of it, so that's great.
Sure.
I love
Well,
that.
I mean, I'm glad we got Young Justice, but I would still love to see, we get a little of that in Brave and the Bold in that one teaser, that one opener bit where you get Batman and the Space Ghost and then the kids and everything blip, but that's it. So
Yep.
Well, it just it hurts me because I think they're such a great team together.
Mhm.
I think that, from Young Justice, I think, which, to me just, I mean, the story just gets bigger and bigger and heavier, and there's they're always adding more to it. I would have loved to have seen how they would have, because they're also super faithful to stuff too. So how they would have played with all the traditional Space Ghost stuff and then just pile story on top of it,
Right. Like give us a big Space Ghost universe.
Yeah.
Like delve deep into some of those little things that we only saw.
In the comics with the Jeff Parker stuff, that when they sort of did their Hanna-Barbera superhero universe, where where they tied Frankenstein Jr. and the Galaxy Trio and Space Ghost. I mean, it'd be interesting to see how that they would have played with all that stuff too.
Right, the DC Future Quest.
Yes, that stuff. Yeah,
yeah.
Like bring in Galaxy Trio and all the other space ones.
Cool. Yeah, Herculoids, right?
Yeah,
oh yeah, all that.
Yep.
Yeah, the comic even had was it Mytor, the caveman superhero?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, they wore the same hat, Mytor and Space Ghost.
Well, Mytor was like the caveman version of Space Ghost, right? Yeah.
Yes.
See? Right there. Oh, man. Weissman and Vietti would have been so great. With if only. But, okay, so Clifton, you brought up Green Lantern, right? Mm-hmm. And you had said that, the movie, the Ryan Reynolds movie had some interest for them to do an animated series to coincide with it, which, again, this happens all the time, right? We got Superman the Animated Series because of the Tim Burton Death of Superman movie that was supposed to happen, but didn't. Yeah. But that was the reason we got Superman the Animated Series.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that trade.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
You had to have one.
Right. Oh, yeah.
But so there was another Green Lantern show in development, a little fuzzy. I don't know if this is before Weissman or Vietti got to it or after. I'm not sure. But Tony Schiavone and Spike Brandt did also a development on a Green Lantern animated series. No, this would have been before, actually. Okay, it's coming back to me. This would have been way before.
This is about 10 years at least.
Right. Okay.
Earlier.
So Tony Schiavone and Spike Brandt are, long time creators at Warner Brothers. They worked on Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, which is my favorite thing from them. But, they like all the straight to video, like Tom and Jerry stuff, all the straight to video Scooby-Doo, like Scooby-Doo and, I don't know, Samurai Warriors or whatever. Like they worked on all of these. So, and they go back to like Tiny Toons working at Warner Brothers. So they had a pitch and developed Green Lantern also.
Right. And like the timeline's a little fuzzy, but it was before they did Duck Dodgers.
Right.
Which was on the air in 2003. So it was a Green Lantern pitch that they'd done before they started production on Duck Dodgers, which aired in 2003.
Yep. No, and that's when it was coming back to me too, because which I'll get into. I'll let you set it up, Clifton, and then I'll get into how I remember Duck Dodgers.
Right. So like this one, it's fascinating to me that Warner Brothers and DC had kept trying to pitch Green Lantern multiple times. And then we didn't get one until the Bruce Timm, Giancarlo Volpe, and was it James Krieg?
Yep.
And James Krieg's Green Lantern, the animated series, which started around 2011, 2012. But they had been attempting multiple times before that to get it going. And this one also featured Kyle Rayner instead of Hal Jordan, because it would have been around that time in the comics when Hal Jordan was not around and Kyle Rayner was our Green Lantern. But what's really interesting about this one is it was discussed on a podcast with Paul Dini from 2012, I think. So the podcast even was a long while back. But Paul Dini described their Kyle Rayner as looking like Wart from Disney's A Sword in the Stone.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's what they were going for. Like their thinking was like, what if we made a Green Lantern show that looked like like a 60s Disney animated film, like a Don Bluth. Like they were going for a Don Bluth, like Dragon's Lair is specifically what they said.
That's not a bad look.
Yeah,
Right.
or the Walt Paragoy was the Walt Disney artist that was on the 60s stuff, like 101 Dalmatians. So they were trying to go capture the spirit of like Don Bluth and Walt Paragoy, and that feel of like the kind of like the rough drawn and Dragon's Lair specifically was what they referenced, which I thought was funny that they don't reference Space Ace, which was Don Bluth's space adventure show. But what I think it was is that their working title and what they had in mind for this one was the Emerald Knights. So they were really leaning into like a Knights aesthetic, like a Space Knights aesthetic. And so that's where they ended up. But Paul Dini describes their version of Kyle as kind of looking like Ward, I said. And the description he says was that like you got the idea that the hero was a kid who really was swept up in more than he could handle, as Kyle Rayner being, swept up in the Green Lantern Corps and everything.
Right.
And then Tony Savoni and Spike Brandt said everyone thought they were crazy for trying to make a superhero movie that looked like Sword in the Stone, but they thought it would have been awesome.
Right.
It sounds like it would have been.
Yeah.
I can get an idea of what it would look like in my head, but that looks pretty cool.
I would love to see art from this.
Yeah.
I would love to see art from this. Which from the podcast, we know it existed. It's just like, it's not online that any of us can find. Like, man, Warner Brothers needs to do an art book.
Yeah.
Like that Disney book that I said came out in 95. It's just like all the unused art project, like development art from stuff that never happened.
Right.
Right. Because apparently they have a whole vault of it. Like they have this whole library of it at Warner Brothers that in the same podcast, like these guys, Paul Dini and Tony Savoni and Spike Brandt, mentioned just going into this library to see like these past projects that never happened at Warner Brothers. And we're going to bring one up here, which was, even though we're talking about shows, this was for a feature animation that never happened, but was in development. And that was New Gods. Apparently Warner Brothers is developing New Gods for an animated feature at some point. I don't know when, but what they tell us is that there's art in this vault somewhere at Warner Brothers that is concept art for New Gods by Mobius and Mike Mignola for an animated feature.
Right.
Wow.
And they said feature money.
Yeah.
Feature money specifically.
Like, so it was like high budget animation.
Yeah.
When are we talking? Like what years?
I mean, it would have been, they're talking about it this podcast is from 2012. That we heard them talking about it. And they're talking about it like it was a while before that. So sometime in the 90s, maybe.
Wow.
Can you imagine that?
No.
Can you imagine Mobius just drawing the New Gods anyway?
Well, that would be cool. No, I can see that. Again, I can see that. But the idea of...
And Mignola had the connection because of Cosmic Odyssey, the comic.
Sure.
Was how he got drawn into it.
Well, I mean, it's one of those when we talk about... I always think about mentioning Cosmic Odyssey as one of the ones they should do, but I never think about it. And I was hoping when when New Gods was still talked about as being a movie,
right,
that we would possibly get, some kind of Cosmic Odyssey type, direct to video or direct to video. That's how old it is. Direct to Blu-ray or direct to, streaming or whatever.
Right.
But no, that sounds fantastic. I just wish, I would want either we could see the art or it existed, one or the other.
Yeah.
Right. I want to see what else is in this vault.
I know, right? The Goonies. The Goonies show. That's in the vault too.
Yeah. At one point they were heavy into development on a Goonies animated series.
Yep.
Wow.
That was developed by Tony Cervoni and Spike Brandt. And the timeline, again, kind of unclear on when this actually was. We're just hearing about them talk about it after the fact. But they talked about their designer for the development was Steven Silver. Steven Silver was the lead character designer on Kim Possible. Also worked with them on Mystery Incorporated as a character designer. He's really good. I like Steven Silver a lot. I know early in his career, he worked as a caricature artist, like on a boardwalk.
Oh, wow.
Like Santa Monica Pier or something like that. And got a lot of practice at likenesses and cartoonish likenesses. And like that's gone with him into his career. And he's really a gifted caricaturists. So they said that they were developing the Goonies and brought in Steven Silver and, said, design us the kids, design us the whole lot of them. And like, he came back and they said, like, normally they'll get designs back and there's notes and they'll be like, oh, like this one's good, but do this or do that. And they're like, not this time. They're like, he nailed it. Like one try.
Wow.
Like every character was like spot on, ready to go, ready to be animated. And then it did not happen. And he said, like, everyone was behind it. Everyone was excited about it. It sounded like Richard Donner was on board, director of Goonies. Like everyone was behind it. And then the problem, this is one where we kind of have an idea of what happened to it, but it sounds like the problem they ran into was licensing likenesses from the actual actors.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, Steven Silver is a very gifted caricaturist and cartoonist and could make these like simple, like very simplified, caricature versions of the actors. And you look at them and you're like, yep, that's totally still Josh Brolin. Like that's totally Sean Astin. That's totally Corey Feldman. And so they had a dilemma of like, if we can't get the likenesses, if they won't go along with it, do we change the designs to not look like them, which would often happen in cartoons. So you'd end up with cartoon characters that didn't look at all like the actors who portrayed these same characters in films because they couldn't clear likenesses. And they didn't want to do that with Goonies. They wanted it to be like clearly Chunk and clearly Data.
Right.
They wanted it to be clearly them. And I feel like that's where the project stalled and then never happened. But man, a Goonies cartoon would have been amazing. Again, a lot of the ideas that they were going to put into Goonies, they say did work their way into Mysteries Incorporated, which is a great show that I love. So again, the trade-off of like, we didn't get this one that would have been great, but we got this one that was great. So what are you going to do?
Which they say, because I brought up the Duck Dodgers thing, which they say in that podcast too, that a lot of their Green Lantern ideas made it into the Green Loon Turn, which was a short from the Duck Dodgers series that they had done. Yeah, and
the Green Loon
Turns. Which I'm like, that doesn't look like Dragon's Lair to me. So I don't know what they're talking about there. It's a fun episode. It's a really fun episode.
Right. Well, I mean, in that one, they were married to the Duck Dodgers style.
Yeah.
But they had they had already compiled a list of what it sounded like 121 Green Lanterns that they were planning to use in their other show.
Yeah.
That they then had already cleared permission for from DC to use. So they're like, use them all here. So they used like 121 different Green Lanterns in that short. And then that one, they did get to use Hal. Just for the Duck Dodgers, the little short. And he's voiced by Kevin Smith.
That's right.
Yes.
I remember that.
Yeah. Fun episode. Duck Dodgers is a great theme song, too.
Right. Tom Jones. You got to love Tom Jones.
And the Flaming Lips.
Tom Jones and the Flaming Lips.
And the Flaming Lips.
Did the theme song for Duck Dodgers.
I didn't stutter. That's a thing, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we got a couple more at DC over here. So let's do another one that we found out about on that podcast, that Dini podcast. There was a Harley and Ivy show.
Right.
In development. In 2000?
Yeah, right around 2000.
Right? For MTV.
Mm-hmm.
So Paul Dini on this with Lynn Naylor, who we talked about also. She was the designer on there. But Tony Schiavone, Spike Brandt were also worked on this for a little while, which is funny because Dini forgot about that. He's telling him about it. And they're like, no, we worked on that with it. That was fun. Shane Glines was also on that
Shane
too.
Glines as well, who's done a ton of stuff since, but was more recently on Justice League Action as their lead designer.
Yeah, and so this one, the kind of the engine of the show that Dini talked about was it was going to be Harley and Ivy and like Amanda Waller, and Amanda Waller was gonna like send them out on missions every week. It was kind of a Suicide Squad thing, but sending them out with the hope that they would die.
Yes.
And they just keep coming back every week.
Right. It was like a 2-person Suicide Squad with Amanda Waller being like, well, you got to do this. And I don't care if you live or die. So go do it.
Yeah.
And then they'd keep coming back.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about this one is like, I mean, this is the MTV animation days of like Celebrity Deathmatch. And the Head, that was a thing, right?
Yes.
And Daria and Beavis and Butthead. And so they wanted them to push the boundaries. And like they really wanted them to like push the Harley and Ivy into push it like as far as they could is what Paul Dini describes it as. And they were taking some anime influences from the Dirty Pair animation that was around in the 90s, and which is an action anime. And so they just kept doing it where they're like, okay, like we'll just keep pushing it more and more and more and more. And MTV's like, yes, like push it further, push it further, push it further. Until it got to the point where DC, like they go back to DC with what they've been developing. And DC's like, yeah, you can't do this.
Right.
Like you've gone too far. Like the fact that, as Paul Dini explained it, he says like the fact that like we wouldn't ever push Batman this far.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that these characters are tangentially all connected to Batman means you can't push them that far either. And that was the end of that MTV project. And again, it's a funny thing of how it all comes around and how times have changed, because fast forward almost 20 years later, and DC is like the one wanting to push the boundaries with Harley and Ivy for DC Universe itself, for a show they produced themselves, which started on DC Universe, Harley Quinn, and is now on HBO Max. And they're the ones being like, push it, no, push it further, push it further. So it is funny how the cycles go around.
Sounded fun, though.
Yeah.
Sounded really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was ahead of the curve on the Suicide Squad stuff being used, because this wasn't like Task Force X hadn't even shown up in Justice League cartoon yet.
Right. Exactly.
And
and this is long before Harley was a member of the Suicide Squad too.
Right. Yeah. So it hadn't been seen before. Like her and Amanda Waller hadn't been seen much teamed up outside of comics, if it happened in comics, which I'm not sure about.
Yeah. So, okay. So we got one more from DC. Batman No Man's Land.
Okay. This one I don't know about. And I've actually never read the comic. So pitch the story.
So, well, actually, I didn't like the comic when I was younger. I remember, like, I was all in for the earthquake stuff, and for whatever reason, No Man's Land, when they started the idea that like that Gotham was sort of on its own and like separated like from the rest of the country because it was deemed like too far gone and beyond helping.
Right.
For me, like however old I was when this came out, like that was just kind of a bridge too far for me. I'm like, all right, that sounds goofy. I didn't realize what they were doing at the time because it was also a little ahead of its time. I realize now what they're doing is post-apocalyptic Batman.
Right.
Right. Which sounds awesome to me. Right. So this one actually got tried twice, and the first time was with James Tucker, actually, who did Brave and the Bold and the New 52 shared universe DC animated movies that just wrapped up recently with Apocalypse War. So he was attached to the first go around of this. There's one or two pieces of concept art out there which are really cool looking. I think Nightwing looks a little weird because they did something funny with his mask. He doesn't wear a domino mask. He's got like a handkerchief over his mouth, like a face covering. It covers his nose and his mouth, which is, okay. Just like, that's weird. But yeah, so apparently this didn't happen because it was, again, like deemed not kid friendly enough.
Right.
And so I believe I remember reading also that James Tucker was also like, I just did a Batman cartoon. I don't know if I want to do another one so close. And so they tried this again. That was supposed to be traditional like 2D animation. And then they tried it again, like as a CG animated Batman show, which I remember at the time that they were like really trying like push hard to get into more like CG animated stuff on television, which again, common thing that you see. No Man's Land didn't happen, but we got it in the vein of Beware the Batman a couple of years later.
Right.
So, yeah, this would have been a fun one, I think, too. I think, I'm a little stunned that after all this time, this one hasn't even been done as a movie yet.
Yeah. That's surprising. There's still time. They make 4 of those a year, right?
Yeah.
It's only a matter of time.
Yep.
They'll get there.
Hopefully it's a 2-parter. But yeah, no, I just think it'd be so much fun to do as a show, too. Just, to have the elbow room to really like build up like the turning of the tide, because that was a big thing, like gang territories, right? Like this was like Poison Ivy had like the park and it was all like overgrown and stuff like that. And, and Gordon was still in there with the cops and they were kind of, they had like this territory. It was neat. So I just think that would have been fun as a show.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to move on. We're going to move out of DC to, there was a Buffy the Animated Series in development for a little while.
Yes.
So Tommy, I'm going to jump to you on this one.
Okay. Well, no, but I think this was being developed during Fox Kids during that time frame. I think early 2000s, in which Fox agreed to develop the show and push it forward. Whedon with Loeb were the executive producers on the show.
Yeah, Jeff Loeb.
But the crazy part is how many people were involved in it and how far they got them with production before it was decidedly canceled. At one point, when Fox Kids ceased operations, I guess that's what they wanted to put it on. But when that whole format of cartooning on Fox stopped, decided to shop the show to other networks, nothing. No one bit.
Yeah, it's crazy.
They came up with 6 scripts, and everyone but the lead agreed to do the voices on the show.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And what's crazy is you can still see the I guess a teaser pilot of it on YouTube. It's still out there.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah. A 4-minute pilot.
Was there a Buffy video game a little bit before this?
Yeah, there's like Chaos something.
There was a video game. Okay, this sounds familiar actually. Now that you're because I think right. Sarah Michelle Gellar didn't want to come back for it, but they were talking about getting the voice from the video game to be Buffy.
Yeah, I think
in this.
Yeah, she already voiced Chaos Bleeds or Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Those are 2 Buffy video games that came out. They made her do the lead.
Would have been cool.
Yeah, I know that like Dark Horse adapted like some of the look from it for a couple issues or like a storyline.
Oh,
I think.
yeah, I remember seeing those comics.
That they did that, but that was about as far as it went. Besides just the little teaser they did.
Yeah, at some point in time, Jeff Loeb revealed that there were 13 scripts of the animated series, and some of them were written by, besides Jeff Loeb and Joss Whedon, Jane Espenson from the show,
right?
Steve DeKnight, Drew Greenberg, Doug Petrie, and Rebecca Kirshner.
So basically, a lot of like the Buffy and Angel writers.
Yeah,
wow.
So a lot of the regular writers were doing the scripts for these.
So it was basically Buffy continued.
Right.
Is what it was. It was,
Well,
it was season 8 or whatever.
Well, I think it was going to be supposed to be. They were actually supposed to be in and around the time where they were still in high school. I think.
Yeah, it takes place in the middle of season 1.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's kind of like stuff that we didn't see.
Untold Tales of Buffy.
Right. That's like the idea for it. So they would continue it that way.
That's too
bad.
That
sounds fun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It does sound fun. Yeah. I would have been into it. Was Buffy on the air at the time when this was happening, or did it like just recently wrap up at this time?
It says development began on the show in 2001. I don't know what the Buffy timeline was for 2001, but that's when this animated series began development.
When did Buffy end? Like 2003?
I believe so.
Okay. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But it sounds cool. All right, so we're gonna go and we did a lot of DC love. We're gonna give Marvel some love for one. One thing that we know about for sure was that in the 90s, Saban Entertainment that did like X-Men the animated series and I think the Silver Surfer cartoon was them.
Okay.
They had a Captain America that was in development, and there was even I'm not sure if it's test footage or like a short pilot or a proof of concept or something, but there's like a 2-minute animation bit that you could find on YouTube that's pretty cool looking.
Yeah.
The story that I saw as to why it didn't happen. Actually, Frank, you got kind of an interesting little tidbit about this.
Well, yeah, they decided that Steve Rogers was going to be not his the character's actual name. It was kind of be like for protecting his real identity. They were going to say he was Steve Rogers, but it was actually a character called Tommy Tompkins.
Right. Yeah.
Which doesn't, I mean, it's not like it's, anybody else who was ever Captain America or whatever, when, the numerous people that have been Cap, it was kind of like, no one really understood why they didn't just call him Steve Rogers.
Yeah, that's an odd choice.
Right.
It is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and judging from the development footage, that it would have taken place in World War II.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another like kind of rumored, like they didn't know how to get around. Like so what are we doing, Nazis on Saturday morning?
Right.
How are we getting around that? Which is funny to me that like why wouldn't you just do Hydra?
Yeah,
Like,
they hadn't thought of that.
Yeah,
workaround yet.
Yeah, the movie thought of that. Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I mean it's also interesting because now I'm wondering about that final season of X-Men the Animated Series. You remember like the last 6 episodes when the production studios kind of changed and the oversee animators changed, because it's like 6 episodes that look different from the rest of the show's run. But there's a Captain America episode in there where you see he teams up with Wolverine in World War II.
Right,
and,
yeah.
Right.
I'm curious. Yeah, an episode called is it Old Soldiers? I gotta look it up. I sound stupid now. I had it in my head and it flew out of my head.
That sounds right. I think that's it.
Is it okay?
I think.
I'm wondering if that was like a backdoor pilot.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, it could have been
to this, But yeah, I mean, the word that I saw is John Semper Jr., who was the executive producer on Spider-Man the Animated Series. He says that Marvel's like shaky financial situation at the time was what ultimately like did it in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, Old Soldiers is the name of the episode. You're right.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That was about the time Marvel was filing for bankruptcy in the late 90s.
Yeah, but that would have been their take on the Jim Lee issue, where Cap and Wolverine team up, and then you find out that they're
Black Widow.
Yeah, they're protecting a younger Natasha.
Yeah,
which is a great issue. It's classic cover from that time. But I could see that. I could see with the fact that Warner Brothers, that Marvel was going through with all that bankruptcy stuff.
Yeah,
that they didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
Plus the idea of, like you said, they didn't just sub Hydrian for Nazis. But
all right, so we have a quick third category, and this is pilot. So this is shows where an actual pilot was made and then didn't get picked up. So we'll stick with Marvel, and we'll go to our favorite Pride of the X-Men. Mm-hmm. Which I believe we gushed about last week, but we'll do it again here.
Right. Yes. We didn't get to go too far into it last time.
Right. I did find actually like some art for this today.
Okay.
Actually, which I, Clifton, I texted you that stuff because I just thought you would think it was cool. It was actually like it was the size comparisons of all the characters and stuff. And like it's neat looking. God, this thing is so cool.
Yeah, it was a model sheet for all the character designs for the animation, but had height markers to show you what all their heights were, and actually did write heights, which has one really, really weird one. Like everybody you're going along, it's like Kitty's 5'3", and you're like, oh yeah, it checks out. Like Juggernaut's what, like 8 feet?
Right, yeah.
I'm like, okay, like that checks out. Like he's a big guy. Magneto they list as 6'10".
Right.
He's got lifts in his shoes.
Yeah, they list Magneto as the same height as Colossus.
Right.
I'm like, I don't know about that one, but I guess he was a big guy.
He's wearing platforms.
Yeah.
So I seem to remember seeing this. I don't know where I saw that particular. I mean, I'm sure like you said, you can find it on the internet, but I remember around the time it was being done, I want to say it was in Marvel Age, which was kind of like Marvel's cheap sort of like, here's what we're doing throughout the line.
Right, like
for
their
the
monthly previews-ish comic.
Right. Had like, I want to say it had that same artwork, but it's either that. Was there ever an art book for just Pride of the X-Men?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Not that I know of.
So maybe that's
there
what
was
I'm
an art
remembering
book
it
for
from.
X-Men the Animated Series. So I don't know if it got tied into that. Because I mean, in some circles, some people do consider this to be the pilot of the Saban X-Men Animated Series that we ultimately got, which is odd to me because I mean, they're separated by 3 years, 4 years, something like that.
And a studio, because Pride of the X-Men was done by Sunbow Entertainment and not Saban.
Yeah. It is a gorgeous 22 minutes of animation.
Yeah, Sunbow could do some great looking stuff, especially using like optical effects.
Yeah.
And so like the special effects has like that glow, that nice like 80s analog animation glow to it.
Yep.
Like, so I remember Magneto's like energy waves when he's making like his magnetic force field. Like, it looks so good.
Yeah.
And the explosions look great. Like, every explosions look like $1 million.
Yeah.
We got Asteroid M, had everything.
Yep. It was very, very much like the X-Men arcade game.
Yes.
Well, yeah. So that was the thing, is that the X-Men are like, when they made the Pride of the X-Men pilot, they were expecting that to go.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
To the fact that they had other merchandise lined up for it already. Like the X-Men arcade game that came out a little bit later, but featured the exact lineup
Yep.
of X-Men from Pride of the X-Men, which was, a lot of your expected ones: Cyclops, Wolverine, Storm, Nightcrawler, Colossus. Were they all in the game?
Yes.
And then the sixth one, because it was the 6-player game, is the more unusual choice of Dazzler
Right.
as the design from the Pride of the X-Men animated series.
Right.
With the headband and the leather
Mhm.
jacket.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a very Jim Lee design.
It is.
And I
it
don't
is-
even know if he did it. I don't even know if he did that design, but it looks like him.
I'm pretty sure that design, when in her own book, when they move away from the disco era Dazzler, like her first appearance, I want to say it was Jackson Geis was the one that was doing the artwork, and I'm pretty sure he designed that costume. I could be wrong,
Okay.
but I'm pretty sure, remembering at the time the covers for the different look when she had the headband and switching that. Is it streaming anywhere?
Oh, it's a good question. I don't know. I know it's on YouTube.
Yeah,
Right.
I know
you
it's on
can watch
YouTube.
the whole episode
Yeah,
on YouTube.
you can watch it all on
Okay.
YouTube.
Okay.
I don't know if it's official anywhere.
What I love about it too, from a writing perspective, is I love how like Kitty is sort of, the audience entry character,
Mhm.
right? And I love how Professor X is like takes her into like the observation deck of the Danger Room, and this is our introduction to the rest of the cast. Like in that
Right.
moment, you're seeing all the X-Men, and this is their name, this is their power, and this is something cool that they could do like in this Danger Room scenario that they're all in. And it's just like really, really well done. I can't say enough good things about this. I did see Bruce Timm talk about this in an interview with Comixology magazine, and he was saying that this was kind of made at the time when G.I. Joe was big, Transformers was big, a lot of those like toy line based things were coming out and going strong. And it was just like, a superhero cartoon was just illegal, like at the time, for the appetite that they thought. Like just like nobody was interested in anything that was based on a comic book based on superheroes. I mean, this is, the next closest thing to this in timeline would have been Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, probably, right? Which was 1980?
10 years earlier. Yeah, like 8 or 9 years earlier.
Yeah. So, yeah. But no, can't say enough good things about it. We should do a spotlight on this, but
I was ready for it. I remember when I learned it was airing, and it aired every once in a while as part of the Marvel animation block, like the Marvel Action Hour or whatever they called it on Saturday mornings. And I would set my VCR to record it every Saturday until I got it.
Right.
Because they would cycle and show different things each week. So I was so excited to check the tape. And it was actually there.
Dino Riders.
Right, yeah. Dino Riders again. RoboCop again.
Right.
And then one day, finally, it was Pride of the X-Men.
Nice.
Does have a Stan Lee cameo too. He's the narrator.
Yep.
So yeah, it checks that box too. Ahead of its time in that
believers.
way. Right.
That's right.
All right. So we're gonna switch over to DC really quick.
So yeah, moving back to DC, and we mentioned DC Nation earlier, the Saturday morning block where they would run shorts. And I don't know if they ever claimed they were using this as a testing ground for proof of concepts, but we know they were, because Teen Titans Go came out of it as shorts on that before it became the Teen Titans Go series that has been running ever since.
Right.
So I think they were not explicitly saying these were trial balloons, but if something landed, if something took off, then they were willing to go with it. And one of those was the Amethyst series of shorts that ran in DC Nation, which were directed by animator Brianne Druhard. And they are a lot of fun. You can find them online, I think officially from either DC on their YouTube or Warner Brothers Animation. I can't remember where, but they are available online officially. And it was just a fun take, very different than what the original Amethyst comic book was at DC. And what was that? The early 80s?
Yes, like 80, 83.
83, okay. Yeah. And those comics you can find, I believe, on DC Universe Infinite. I think you can find the old original comics, which was like kind of a She-Ra type of series, if I remember right. This one was playing off of video games and like love of video games, especially love of video game role-playing games, video RPGs. And it was just like a fun little like cute action adventure with some heart and like some cool designs of this character, you know, who ended up in this fantasy world, just kind of like playing along with this adventure she found herself in. It was one of the more popular things from DC Nation and did gather interest to the point that Warner Brothers Animation was like fully developing it for a series and considering what they did for DC Nation is to be basically the pilot. So they were going full in on that. And I believe I heard her say that they had planned out 1, if not 2 seasons in additional to what we had gotten as the DC Nation thing. Eventually it was not picked up by Cartoon Network. So they were trying to shop it to Cartoon Network, but Cartoon Network eventually, after a lot of development, declined on it. I think the reason being is that Steven Universe was coming up in Cartoon Network at the same time, and Cartoon Network felt the two projects were just too similar.
Right.
And so they opted to go with Steven Universe that they were developing themselves,
right.
I believe is what happened to it.
Which features a character named Amethyst.
Yeah, kind of a similar feel show and also had an amethyst of its own in that show. So that's what happened to that one. Brianne Druhard, after that, had been doing a webcomic series called RPG for years.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a similar in tone to Amethyst. It was like a fun, heart-filled, cute fantasy series. Also playing on like that, the title itself is a play on RPG for role-playing games. And Nickelodeon picked that one up to develop in their shorts program. So there is a short online that you can see from Nickelodeon of that, which is a program that Nickelodeon would often use to basically develop pilots for shows. So it was made in 2018. So she has had a couple attempts, and like, I love her stuff. And I hope one of these lands and somebody gives her a chance because she does a lot of great stuff.
Yeah. She does.
And you can see both of those, both the Amethyst shorts and the RPG short from Nickelodeon.
All right. So that wraps it up for our pilot section. So we are going to start wrapping it up, and we're going to go around and say, out of everything that we said, which is the one that we wish the most happened. But first, if you like the show, you could check out all of our episodes on YouTube and letmeknowhowitis.com. Just please, however you find us, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave us a review. And finally, if you have any ideas for topics, you can leave a suggestion on Twitter or in the comments. Our Twitter handle is our show's initials, LMKHII. All right. Who wants to go first? It's a lot to pick from, a lot of really good stuff to pick from. I'm having a hard time, so I'm not going first.
There's a lot of good stuff. I mean, one of the ones that like jumped out at me and immediately just spoke to the, 8-year-old me, and like 8-year-old me would have been so excited about, is the Emerald Knights. Which was the Green Lantern pitch that we talked about from Tony Cervoni and Spike Brandt, which was the Green Lanterns done in the style of Don Bluth and Dragon Slayer and Sword in the Stone. And every one of those things was something I loved, like loved growing up. I loved the Sword in the Stone.
Yeah, it's a great one.
I loved everything Don Bluth. I remember being so excited when we'd occasionally get to see Dragon Slayer or Space Ace, the cartoon, and or glimpsing it in the video arcade, but not having the whatever exorbitant amount of quarters it took at the time it was out. So I just watch other people play it because it was an expensive video game to play.
Yes.
But yeah, like just everything about those, like if I was a kid and that had been made, yeah, I would have loved it. I loved all those source inspirations they were going for. And I love Green Lantern and the Green Lantern Corps. So it's just like tons of my favorite things all rolled into one thing, just in the idea of it. So definitely would have liked to have seen that.
Give it to me in an art book at the very least. I'm telling you, Warner Brothers, there's so much money of mine you can make if you just like start putting this stuff out in book form too.
Yep.
All right, Frank, Tommy, you guys pick yours yet?
If I had to decide, it'd probably be Pride of the X-Men.
Oh, okay. You want to see that continue on as a show?
Well, just because you had X-Men at the height of their popularity, or right before the zenith, which is the Jim Lee era.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got a fully realized show, it wasn't edited, it was debuted, widely spread, but it just never connected. It's like, I get with Clifton's idea, we never get to see who voices, the animation, it's all conceptual. But here we had a show that they just didn't pull the trigger on. They just made enough for a pilot that they advertised widely. And this is during my childhood when that came out. So it's kind of sad to see something that they tell you is going to happen, show you it's going to happen, show how good it's going to happen, and something that you love at the time that you're loving it. But just don't do it.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right, Frank, you're up.
This was tough. There's a lot of really good choices out there. I think just because we haven't had this character in a while that I would go with Space Ghost in that particular form of being, super heroic. Like that was the Jeff Parker book really scratched that itch for me, but it was one of those things where I would love to see him animated again. Not that I didn't love, I didn't enjoy Space Ghost Coast to Coast. I just wanted him back in being,
you want to be a hero?
Doing all that cool
David
stuff.
Letterman.
Yes. So that's what I would go with that one. I mean, if I could choose to, I would go with the Superman family in a heartbeat. But I think just because we had, like I said, the Tomasi book and the Super Sons book as well, I would just have to go with Space Ghost for now.
Okay. I am surprising myself by not picking a Batman project and not picking a Genndy Tartakovsky project.
What?
Who are you?
I'm picking Mixed Nuts. I want that Hanna-Barbera Looney Tunes thing so bad.
Sure.
I want to see what it's like when Snagglepuss meets up with Porky Pig, right? And when Daffy Duck meets up with Huckleberry Hound.
It writes itself.
Come on, Hulu. Don't let me down, Hulu. Make it happen.
Well, HBO Max.
HBO Max. Doing it. Sure. I'll take it any way I can get it. Come on. All right. This is a fun one. Okay, listeners, hit us up on Twitter or in the comments. Let us know which one of these shows you wish had been made. As always, we'll post links and examples to everything we talk about on letmeknowhowitis.com. Please remember to like us and follow us on social media. We will see you next week. Thanks for listening.